Good morning and happy Friday, a very snowy and very cold January Friday. It's 10 o'clock. It's time for Lit Lattes. We have a lot to go over today. We got a ton of new nonfiction, and I picked a few of my favorites, and that totaled 9. That's not even all of them. So we're gonna dive right into that. So the first book that we got, I should talk about this close to Valentine's Day, but I'm not sure if it's going to be here by then. So I grabbed it right now. It's Tiny Love Stories, edited by Danielle Jones and Maya Lee. It's told in voices that are honest, vulnerable, tender, and wise. There's 175 true stories that are each as moving as a lyric poem and convey a universally recognized feeling, all in fewer than 100 words. There are stories of love found and love lost, and the sometimes rarest of loves, self love. Stories of romantic love, brotherly love, platonic love. Stories of mothers and daughters, husbands and wives, strangers who dream of what might have been. It's super short. Well, 175 pages or so. But there's pictures and it's very cute. Very, very readable. I want to do this. This is We Came, We Saw, We Left by Charles Wieland. It's about their family's gap year. So Wieland paints a picture of adventure and connectivity, juggling themes of local politics, global economics, and family dynamics while exploring answers to questions like, how do you sneak out of a Peruvian town that has been barricaded by the local army? And where can you get treatment for flesh-eating bacteria your daughter picked up 2 continents ago? From Colombia to Cambodia, We Came, We Saw, We Left chronicles 9 months across 6 continents with 3 teenagers. What could go wrong? Clearly, they already told us, but that's fine. I would love to take just a gap year and travel with my family. I think about that a lot. I read an article about an Australian nurse who took maternity leave. I think they can take a year or more there. And as soon as she had her baby, she just strapped the infant to her and traveled the world for a year while being with this newborn. I thought that was pretty incredible. So, a little side story, a very early gap year for that child. But this book has been popping up everywhere on some nonfiction lists, and it's How Did I Get Here by Bruce McCall. And it chronicles the evolution of his artistic genius, as well as his journey from gifted childhood scriber to passionate automobile enthusiast, a hobby that took him to the heights of the Detroit and Manhattan advertising world. His long-held passion for drawing and writing, which mostly lay dormant during his Mad Men days — I love that show so much — reemerged later in life as he left the realm of advertising for the world of arts and letters, most notably at the National Lampoon, as a writer for Saturday Night Live in its first incarnation, and then, of course, at the New Yorker. I guess he's known for his New Yorker covers. He does the art for them, or at least he did, as well as other magazines such as Vanity Fair. His is an unorthodox life and career path, traversing through worlds that have now become iconic, giving us rich firsthand insights into Bruce's unique creative development and process, and providing a rare window into both the highs and lows that define an artist's career and life. I think I might read that. Oh, I didn't close the other shade. Just got some super bright sun in my face. This next book I'm a little jazzed about. It's The Doctor's Blackwell by Janice P. Nomura. Elizabeth Blackwell believed from an early age she was destined for a mission beyond the scope of the ordinary womanhood. Though the world at first recoiled at the notion of a woman studying medicine, her intelligence and intensity ultimately won her the acceptance of the male medical establishment. In 1849, she became the first woman in America to receive an MD. She was soon joined in her iconic achievement by her younger sister, Emily, who was actually the more brilliant physician. Elizabeth and Emily. I was like, I thought I already said her name. Oh, names. It's fine. Exploring the sisters, allies, enemies, and enduring partnership, Janice Nomura presents a story of trial and triumph. Together, the Blackwells founded the New York Infirmary for Indigent Women and Children, the first hospital staffed entirely by women. Both sisters were tenacious and visionary, but their convictions did not always align with the emergence of women's rights or with others. I always want to say, well, it sounds pretty good, but that's why I picked that. Just assume I say that after every book. Well, sounds pretty good. Okay. For someone who had a pretty short life, this is a great big book about Sylvia Plath. But boy, did she live her life. Something on the book, it's fine. So this is The Red Comet, The Short Life and Blazing Art of Sylvia Plath by Heather Clark. With a wealth of never-before-accessed materials, including unpublished letters and manuscripts, court, police, and psychiatric records, and new interviews, Heather Clark brings to life the brilliant daughter of Wesley, Massachusetts, who had poetic ambition from a very young age and was an accomplished published writer of poems and stories even before she became a star English student at Smith College in the early 1950s. Do you know when she died? I feel like I should know more about Sylvia Plath than I do, but I don't. So maybe I should read this, and then can be one of the cool kids. I am really excited about this next book. It's Can't Slow Down, How 1984 Became Pop's Blockbuster Year by Michelangelo Matos. Your favorite song from the 80s, I can almost guarantee, came from this year. Everybody knows the hits from 1984. Pop music's greatest year, from Thriller to Purple Rain. Hello. When I was writing this up, I was like, I'm not gonna sing, but I can't help myself. Lionel Richie is wonderful. To Against All Odds, What's Love Gotta Do It? I love Tina Turner. To Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. These iconic songs continue to dominate advertising, karaoke nights, and the soundtracks for film classics like Boogie Nights and TV hits like Stranger Things. But the story of that thrilling, turbulent time and an era when the top 40 radio was both the leading edge of popular culture and a moral battleground has never been told with the full detail it deserves until now. Can't Slow Down is the definite portrait of the exploding world of mid-80s pop and the time it defined, from cold world anxiety to the home computer revolution. This is pretty big, but there's also pictures. Also, a little fun fact about me, because in 1984, Duran Duran was super popular. I'm a huge Duran Duran fan, like massive. I've seen them several times, besides Roger. But everyone else, Nick was my favorite, in case anyone was wondering. The next book is a memoir. It's Aftershocks by Nadia Owusu. And this follows young Nadia, who followed her father, who just so happened to be a United Nations official, from Europe to Africa and back again. Just as she and her family settled into a new home, her father would tell them it was time to say their goodbyes. The instability wrought by Nadia's nomadic childhood was deepened by a family secret and fractures both lived and inherited. Her Armenian-American mother, who abandoned Nadia when she was 2 years old, would periodically reappear only to vanish again. And her father, who is Guyanan, was the great hero of her life, and he unfortunately passed away when she was 13. After his passing, Nadia's stepmother weighed her down with a revelation that was either a bombshell secret or a lie, rife with shaming innuendo. Aftershocks is the way she hauled herself from the wreckage of her life's perpetual quaking, the means by which she has come to understand that the only ground firm enough to count on is the one written into existence by her own hand. I love the cover of this one. This is Icebound. It's Shipwrecked at the Edge of the World by Andrea Pitzer. In this book, Andrea masterfully combines a gripping tale of survival with a sweeping history of the great edge of exploration, a time of hope, adventure, and seemingly unlimited geographic frontiers. At the story's center is William Bartens, one of the 16th century's greatest navigators whose larger-than-life ambition and obsessive quest to chart a path through the deepest, most remote regions of the Arctic ended both tragedy and glory. Journalist Pitzer did extensive research learning how to use 400-year-old navigation equipment, setting out on 3 Arctic expeditions to retrace Barton's steps and visiting replicas of his ship and cabin. Oh, it gets so cold just thinking about that. We've made it to the end. I feel like I've been speeding right through these. Last one is Sometimes You Have to Lie, The Life and Times of Louise Fitzhugh, renegade author of Harriet the Spy. And this one's by Leslie Brody. Harriet the Spy was first published in 1964 and had mesmerized generations of readers and launched 1 million diarists. Its believed anti-heroine, Harriet, nope, its beloved anti-heroine, Harriet, is erratic, unsentimental, and endearing, very much like the woman who created her, Louise Fitzhugh. Born in 1928, Fitzhugh was raised in segregated Memphis, but she soon escaped her cloistered world and headed for New York, as you do, where her expanded milieu stretched from the lesbian bars of Greenwich Village to the art world of post-war Europe, and her circle of friends included members of the avant-garde like Maurice Sendak and Lorraine Hansberry. Fitzhugh's novels, written in the era of political defiance, are full of resistance to authority, to conformity, and even radically for a child's author to make believe. I love this picture of her too. She looks like she is up to something. Lots of good stuff. A lot of biographies, memoirs. Mostly that. We get so many new books in the library. You just have to come and look at them because naturally I cannot talk about them all. We'd be here forever. I listened to so many books this week. I'm halfway through my 4th book of the week. I started off with The Wrong Family by Taryn Fisher. Months and months and months ago, I talked about her other book called The Wives. That book was wild. And this one didn't disappoint. I have a running theory that she just sits at her computer and is like, what is literally the craziest, like low-key scariest thing that could ever happen to a family, and then she writes that book. So The Wrong Family follows 2 women, Winnie and Juno. Winnie used to be a mental health like counselor, social worker, and she was working with a lot of homeless people in the Seattle area, and she has this huge house with her husband, and they are like torn between redoing it and making it like a separate apartment or something that they can rent out for Airbnb. And Winnie is not comfortable with this, but decides to do all the work that needs to be done in order to convert this part of the house. So as people are working on it, Juno, who turns out to be a homeless woman, is basically squatting in the other part of their house. So you don't really realize that at the very beginning of the story. but yeah, so Juno thinks that she hears like this massive secret and kind of stirs the pot a little bit. And a lot of lives get ruined, but it's really good and it's a little shocking. But yeah, I would recommend it. I'd probably give it 4 stars. I'm really picky about my 5 stars now. I also read The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. I came out a couple of weeks ago, and I do believe it's on the New York Times bestseller. It's also on Hoopla. All of these are on Hoopla. Um, the Wife Upstairs was kind of wild. Lots of twists in that. Basically, it follows this dog walker. For the life of me, I can't even think of her name right now, but she works in a very affluent, um, like private community in Birmingham, Alabama, and she catches the eye of this guy whose wife had disappeared in a boating accident with her best friend. It kind of gave me like some Rebecca vibes, like massive Rebecca vibes, but it turns out that the wife is upstairs and literally nothing is what it seems in this, so I will leave it at that. It was pretty good. Also, these books were about 9-ish hours listening time, so you can get them pretty quick. That usually translates into like 200, 250, just below like 300 pages, so you can get through them. I'm continuing my Harry Potter, not quest, but like just trying to get through them. So I listened to Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets this week. Still hold firm that the movies were exactly like the books, even though people tell me there's lots of details. I haven't watched the movies in ages, but I'm like, oh yeah. So basically, I just play like the parts of the movie that I remember in my head as I listen. So I'll probably continue that next week. And then I decided to change it all up. And now I'm halfway through The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. Um, um, I was just talking to Tina about this, and it's just like a slice of people's lives. Like nothing really happens, and you just like go through the phases of like this person's life. But I like her writing, and Tom Hanks reads it, so in a way, I find it like a very comforting story. But the Dutch House basically tells the story of all the people that live in this Dutch house in Pennsylvania. Um, yeah, and Danny is the narrator, and he has a sister, Maeve, and their dad like passes away, and their mother left them when Danny was pretty young. And so their dad remarried someone else, and so there's like this power struggle of like what happens after their father passes away, and just their life going through it. It's a nice story. It's nothing like the other 3 that I listened to, so it's a nice little reroute, another direction. But all of them are great, of course, so read them. All right, enough of my rambling. This week we talked to Dan Cole. He is a science teacher by day, podcast extraordinaire by night, and I think I say that again, so you'll get to hear me say that in about another 20 seconds. So let's cut to that. Bridget, roll the tape.
All right, so today we have library patron, science teacher by day, podcaster extraordinaire by night and weekend, and also local author, Dan Cole. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm also doing great. Thank you so much. We've been thinking about having Dan on for many, many months. I remember he told me probably the week of Thanksgiving to chat. And then it dawned on me that we can do these interviews at any time. So we booked them, and now here we are. Right. So I want you to talk about your book, Lanny, young adult book, right? And I could read the back, but I think it'd be a little bit more fun if you could just give us a quick little summary.
Sure, yeah. So it's a young adult fantasy. And I tried to, one of my main ideas with it was to try to take like typical fantasy tropes and kind of twist them a little bit.
Mhm.
So you say fantasy and people immediately think like medieval princesses and dragons and stuff like that. And it doesn't have any of that in it. It actually starts in like a very futuristic city, and then they'd end up traveling to an area of the world that is much more like backwater kind of thing. Um, but it's got a lot of action. It's got a lot of heart. At least I think so.
Mhm.
And it's about trying to survive in a world that is controlled by fear. It's kind of like
Hmm.
it's almost like it's set in the future of a storyline where the bad guys have already won in a
Mhm.
way, and the heroine of the story, Lanny, is trying to kind of survive in this world, and she's unique in that she's like incapable of feeling fear, which
To hear it.
gets her in a lot of issues.
Sure. This sounds great. I haven't picked it up yet. I will be truthful. It's just really hard for me to read like actual books. I drive too much. Anyway, so audiobook, I'll get right on that. I'll just have you read it to me as I drive.
You can. It's a podcast, actually.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about that. I forget about a lot of things, Dan. You'll have to forgive me. So like
Not a
what
problem.
inspired you to write this? Like were there any books that you read that you're like, I want to write this story? Anything that like inspired this literary wise?
A bunch of things.
Sure.
I've been, I've always liked creating characters and creating little stories as far back as I can remember. I love to joke and say that I've been reading comics since before I could read.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of influence from that, and it was just it seemed like kind of the natural progression, eventually getting to the novel part of writing things. It was for a long time I'd wanted to be to create comics myself, and I came up with the ideas just fine. I never felt like I could do the art myself, and I wanted to. I wanted to have like full creative control on it. So with Lanny, it was actually kind of came out of a different story I was telling, and I can never quite get it to work as a complete story that takes place way in the past of Laney's story. So that has like little sprinkles in throughout this novel. But as fan is heavily influenced by Tolkien, of course. Um, just with fantasy things in general, everything's
Hmm.
inspired by Tolkien.
Yep.
I feel like if you don't give them credit, you're lying. More recently, inspired by the Warhammer worlds, which
Sure.
was originally tabletop miniature game, but they
Mhm.
have all kinds of novels and RPGs and whatnot, and more of the more down to earth kind of style was heavily influenced by that.
Excellent. Um, so like every episode of the podcast is a chapter, right?
Yes.
Okay. They're all out.
Yep, we
Um,
finished
excellent.
a few months ago. Yeah, it's
Perfect.
called Big Fiction Energy.
Okay, excellent. I will listen to this next week for sure. I can't wait. I've been looking at it.
It was so much fun to record that too.
I
Danny that
bet.
you had on last week,
Mhm.
she voices Lanny and a few other characters, and a friend of ours, Tim, does a bunch of things, and so we tried to really go all out with like voicing it, and there's music and sound effects in there. So I always refer to it as an audio drama. And it
I
was
love
just it
that.
was a blast. Eventually, I'm going to finish writing the sequel, so we'll do that too. But a lot of other things have gotten in
Yay.
the way. Life.
Everything. Yes. Yes. Excellent. Oh my God. So I cannot wait to talk about this next week during next week's lattes. As I
Sweet.
can't imagine it's more than 12 hours long to listen to from start to finish, right?
For the whole podcast, yeah, a lot more.
Is it? Okay.
We
So
so
I
yeah,
get,
so each episode of the podcast is a chapter, but we bookend it with in the beginning there's just kind of banter and whatnot. I ask a question to the host every week. After a little while we kind of got going with that, and then after every episode we do like kind of like a director's commentary kind of thing where we talk about what's happening. Tim
Sure.
makes predictions because he hadn't read it before we recorded it. So he talks about what
Nice.
he thinks going to come. But if you skip the end stuff, you obviously can get through it a lot faster. It's 20 chapters, so it's 20 episodes.
Okay.
And I think it ranges from like half an hour to a little over an hour, I think is the longest episode.
Perfect. All right. I cannot wait to listen to it then. That's excellent. Because it's, like I said, super hard. So, like, what did you like to read as a kid? Like, what was your jam?
X-Men was my thing. Still my thing. Actually just bought the newest issue of X-Men earlier today.
Oh, nice. Excellent.
X-Men I love. I was into Goosebumps like everybody
Mm-hmm.
my age was. Oh, Animorphs. I loved Animorphs for a long time.
I forgot all about those.
Right? Because I didn't even realize my daughter Lily just recently read the one and only Ivan. Same
Mm-hmm.
author.
No
She wrote
kidding.
the Animorphs series. Because now she just goes by Catherine Applegate, and when she did
Mm,
Animorphs, she was K.A. Applegate. So I didn't make the connection
mm.
right away, but it like listed in the beginning of the book, like it listed what else she wrote, and I was like, "What?"
That's kind of fun. A
Really cool.
multi-generational.
Yeah.
Yeah, neat. What are some of like your favorite authors now? Some of your favorite books? This is a really open-ended question. I'm sure we could talk about this for many, many minutes and go.
Right. Right now, I don't cling too much to one author too often. Um, I read a lot of fantasy and sci-fi, so I read a lot of like in certain franchises and whatnot. Like
Mhm.
Star Wars just started their new line called the High Republic. So I've
Mm,
been picking I'm reading the first book of that right now. Should get there's like a young adult one. I forget what it's called off the top of my head. I ordered to read to Lily. So I read to her a little bit every night before bed.
mhm.
Um, but I've been reading the Throne of Glass series.
Okay.
I think it's Sarah Maas, Sarah
Oh,
Maas. I
yep,
forget
yep,
how
yep,
I'm
yep.
gonna say it.
MAAS.
Yeah.
Mm,
I read the first one of that a couple months ago, and I started the second one, but then I wanted to read the Star Wars book instead. So actually had it from the library, so I took it back because I was like, I'm not gonna get to it for a while.
thank you.
um, I was like, "Hey, maybe somebody else will read it before I get back to it because I'm not a fast reader, so I know this Star Wars book is going to take me at least a month to get through."
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
well, what else have I been reading lately? I feel like it's kind of all over the place. I read the first of the Witcher
Oh,
novels.
okay.
Probably, I guess that was like a year ago now, because after the Witcher series came out on Netflix, I was like, this is really cool. I never read this stuff, and I read the first, what they say to read first, because
Mhm.
when they were released, all the order of it is all over the place.
Now,
But I read the first one of that, and it was really cool.
are those novels and comic books or like graphic novels? Or is it graphic novels? Because
As
I
far as
know
I
like we have
know,
some graphic novels.
it started just as a novel series. Well, they were short. I think a lot of them are short story compilations.
Okay.
Others are novels. I think I don't know that much about it, but I think after they got picked up by the video games and whatnot, and it got more popular, I think they then adapted it to like graphic novels. But originally, it was just print,
Oh,
as far as I know.
nice. I thought it just came from the graphic novels. Because we have them on Hoopla, I think. Um,
Hmm.
and once that came out on Netflix, I noticed like because I get a whole dashboard of like what's popular in certain categories, and it was like all The Witcher. So I was like, rad.
Right.
Yeah. So I know that those were super popular, but I didn't know that they were books. So that's neat.
Mhm.
Right on. Is
Yeah.
there, I love this question so much. Are there any books, and I know that you hopped on last week's Lit Latte and you have the 100-page rule. Um, but were there like any books that you just had to stop before that 100-page where you're like, mm-mm, I do not like this book?
It's only ever happened once.
Mm.
One, so since I've adopted that rule from Liz, It used to be if I started a book, I was going to finish it because I was stubborn. I'm like, well, I'm going to like it eventually. And typically I cherry pick books that I know I'm going to like.
Mhm.
But the only time I've ever followed that rule was if somebody recommended to me, they gave me their copy of it, was The Black Company.
Mm,
I,
mhm,
I can't
mhm.
remember who the author is now. And I could not get into it. I got to the 100 pages. It was like, it was perfect, it was the end of a chapter. And I was like, all right, I'm done. Because I was like waiting to get to the 100 pages to be able to stop. I hear people recommend it regularly for fantasy stuff. And I was just like, it seems like I should like it. It's like dark, gritty fantasy, but I just never knew what was going on. I felt like.
Just a lot of all over the
So
place.
yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. Oh golly. Um, do you have like any book recommendations? I feel like this is probably a question I really should ask. Like, what are some books that like hands down, like you have to read this book?
Oh
I'm
man.
glad I just thought of it right now. I have like 3 weeks left of lit lattes before I move, and I'm like, oh, here's my grand idea.
Oh no. Um, I feel what I've been recommending for years, I think Danny talked about last week, that I've been trying to get her to read forever, is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, which is, it's a big fat book. It's like 1,000 pages or something like that. And there's a sequel that's even longer, The Wise Man's Fear. And like, I understand why she has a hard time getting into it. But I feel like once you really understand, like the world he's building is so intricate and so detailed, it's just amazing, the different cultures he comes up with people that are so different from anything else in fantasy. And it's one of those that's like, it's a fantasy world, but the really fantastical elements are kind of hidden away, or they're very, I don't want to say mundane because they're fantastical, but they're very well explained. Like the magic in it, he goes really in depth into how the magic works, and it's very like toned down magic. Like people aren't throwing fireballs, but there's some really really cool stuff that he does. And I really like the main character because he's really good at like everything he does, but that doesn't always mean things work out for him because he's very arrogant. And I think a
Mm,
lot of the story is him learning that that doesn't always work. Like he can't, just because he's really good at this stuff doesn't mean that things are going to go easy for him, and he has to learn how to have people, like sometimes he has troubles getting people to like him because he is so full of himself and everything. When I actually really like that about the character. I've seen some people complain that like, how can you support a character, how can you get behind a main character that's good at everything already? But it's like he starts out really poor and trying to like go to this school to learn how to do magic, which makes
mm.
it sound kind of Harry Potterish, but it's not at all.
I'm listening
And
to the
like,
second Harry Potter book right now.
right,
Fun fact.
but it's the way that he has to trick his way in instead, because he can't pay the entrance fees.
Mhm.
So because he's so smart, he like tricks the people into paying him to go to school there, which is, I was, as I was reading it, I was like, that was amazing. How do you do that?
Like, what is the short summary? So we're following this guy who's good at everything, but like, what's a quick summary? Why
So
would I
okay,
want to read
so it starts with the main character later in life. He's working as like an innkeeper, and he has like this magic sword up on the wall, but he
this?
like, and he has like an apprentice kind of thing, and he's like, he has this massive backstory, like this he would be super famous if he told people who he was, but he goes by a different name. So it's kind of finding out like, why is he like sort of in hiding but not really. And then like the whole story is him telling his story to like somebody that found him and wants to chronicle it.
Hmm.
The series is called the King Killer Chronicles, I think is what it's called. So it's finding out like, why is it even called that. So he's like, basically it's him telling his life story to this guy who's writing it all down.
I feel like that's some Interview with a Vampire vibes a little bit.
Kind of,
Kind of.
yeah, it might be influenced by that a little bit.
Nice. Awesome. Um,
um,
yeah. I didn't write any of these down. I don't have the questions in front of me. Oh, what's on your to read list? Besides the Star Wars books, like what's something that you're like, oh, this is coming out, I need to read it, or not coming out, it's already out.
I could look at my Goodreads and see what I have on my to read list. But yeah, right now it's the Star Wars stuff because I figure by the time I finish one, the next one will be out because they
Mm-hmm.
have a pretty aggressive release schedule there.
Mm-hmm.
Also the what's it called? Seafire trilogy. I think that the third one of that is coming out like next month, and I didn't realize it was that soon. Um, I'll look up really quick as we're talking who that's by because that one I really enjoyed. It's another young adult. It's kind of like Mad Max meets Waterworld, where it's a crew of pirate girls basically. I
I
think
love
they're
it
all like
already.
teens. Um, and I was reading because I was trying to, as trying to write young adult stuff, I was looking up different young adult things that were recommended, and this was a new one. I think the first one came out like 2 years ago or something like that, called Seafire, because the main character has very red hair. I think is why it's called that. And it's just, I don't know, it's just a really cool like adventure story. Oh, Natalie C. Parker
Okay.
is the author of that. The
That
second one's
name-
called Steel Tide.
that sounds super fun. Who doesn't love
Yeah, they're
pirates?
really cool.
And who
And
doesn't
it's all
love
a lot
lady
of it is
pirates?
about like the relationship between the girls, how they can like the whole sisterhood thing. Like I appreciated that it was I don't know, like not like overly sexualized or anything like that. Like they loved each other in like a platonic way.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I really enjoyed Wilder Girls very
I was
recently too
just,
for those
you
same
read my
reasons.
mind. I was
I
like,
really
yeah,
like that one.
yes. And I know that you and Danny left with it last time you guys were here in that huge stack that I made you all take. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, Wilder Girls, because I really enjoyed that. I read that not this summer, but the summer that it came out for 2019. And I think that was like my first young adult book that I like read and enjoyed in like a really long time because John Green ruined my life. And I was like, I don't like teen romance books. So dumb. But this I was like, I'll just give this a chance because I was obsessed with the cover and I loved like the concept of the book. So I'm so happy that you also liked it.
Oh my
Sometimes
gosh, I read that book in like a week, which is really fast, maybe 2 weeks. That's really fast for me.
same. Hmm. Yeah.
Just the imagery that she put together, was it Rory Powers?
Hmm.
And just the mood she established on Raxter Island was just palpable, and I thought that was amazing.
Hmm. And
The
I think
horror
there is a
aspects.
sequel. There's a sequel. I think.
There is, or
I
there's one
she's
coming.
I think there's one coming. I
All
think,
right, sweet.
I think. Yes. Also, can I give you a book recommendation? Did you freeze? Oh, for 2 seconds I thought you were like,
It did for a
oh, okay.
second there. You were like, it says my
Um,
internet is unstable.
have you ever read any Lee Bardugo?
That does not
I
sound familiar.
so she did The Six of Crows. She has a couple of like young adult series, but she
That
wrote a
sounds
book.
familiar.
Yeah. She wrote a fantasy book called Ninth House, and it's about, I like screamed about it I think at the end of August, the beginning of September. It's about the secret societies at Yale, and there's like a ton of magical realism, and it is so good.
Oh,
This is
cool.
what I am recommending to you, especially since you really like that genre. So it's not
Well,
currently
what was
here.
it called again?
Ninth House. It's black cover. It has a snake. I feel like that is a theme with like young adult books. There's always like a snake and a sword. There's a lot of books coming through with very similar covers, and I just get really
Uh-huh.
confused by them. Be like, I thought we already had this. Oh, it's a different book.
Right.
That's
The
fine.
covers go in waves. One style's popular for a couple years and it's something different. I hope the
Hmm.
young adult thing gets away from the blank of blank and blank titles pretty soon.
Hmm.
Because you just You can't tell anything apart because they have the same title. They're just slightly different nouns in there.
Yeah, there's like a serpent and there's a lot of queen ones. I feel like
Yeah.
maybe I'm making general assumptions, but that's fine. God, I feel like there was one thing else I wanted to add, but I think that might be it. And I don't want to take any more of your time. I know you're a busy dad. And it's getting about to be bedtime, I'm assuming. I don't know your life. Dan, thank you so much for coming on. This has been so fun.
Thank you. It was fun.
Yeah. And I'm glad we could get you on. I'm glad I wasn't super weird because that would be a thing.
It'd be a little weird, make it interesting, right?
Like to spice things up. Excellent. I want you to have a great night and come to the library soon. Love to see you before we leave. Yeah, I leave.
Yeah.
All
You have a
right.
good
Take
night
care.
too.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
And tell Danielle I said hello.
Of course.
Great. Take care.
That is it for today's show. Come back next week. We have, oh my goodness, 3 more shows left before I say goodbye to this white stuff. I don't have to worry about my feet becoming numb because they're too cold. Come with me, everybody. Just let's go to warmer weather. Unless you like this one, stay. Anyways, have a great week, a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye.